Welcome to the New Earth Entrepreneurs Podcast, where innovation meets sustainability. Building a better tomorrow today. We interview changemakers and visionary leaders redefining success for the planet. Here you'll find inspiring stories and solutions that matter. Welcome to the New Earth Entrepreneurs.
Welcome to the New Earth Entrepreneurs Show. Today's guest is Amanda Freund of CowPots LLC. Amanda and her family have pioneered the use of cow manure to create biodegradable planting pots known as CowPots, providing an eco-friendly alternative to traditional plastic pots. From the dairy farm to the garden, CowPots support sustainable agriculture by turning waste into a valuable product for gardeners and farmers alike. Today we'll hear Amanda's journey in sustainable innovation and her vision for expanding the reach of CowPots globally. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm very glad to have you here. Thank you for joining. Looking forward to learning more about CowPots and how you're making sustainable impact through farming. If we want to start with an overview, CowPots has a unique origin. Could you tell us more about how the idea to use cow manure for biodegradable pots started and what inspired your family to take this direction?
Sure. So, for generations, dairy farmers have realized the value of cow manure, which is the byproduct of being a dairy farmer, right? So we're in the business of making milk, but for just about every pound of milk our cows give us, we get an equal amount of manure. So a lot of times when people visit me at like a trade show booth or something, I ask them, how much manure does one cow make? And so I'm asking you, what do you think?
By, would you call it like by a day time frame or?
Yeah. So in 24 hours, how many pounds of manure can one cow make?
8 pounds.
It's closer to 100 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
So, you're dealing with a, 1,400 pound animal, but on average, one dairy cow produces about 100 pounds of manure, and we've got 350 of them sitting on our farm. So when you start adding that up, that's a huge responsibility to properly manage that byproduct. So, we've always appreciated its value when it comes to fertility, to grow the crops, to feed the cows that then digest it, make manure. And then it's this incredible closed circle. But inevitably, we're left with an abundance, right? So we meet our crop fertility needs, but then what do we do with what we have beyond that? Because we want to make sure that we only apply as much as our crops can actually take up from the soil. So in 1997, we actually installed an anaerobic methane digester. And here we are today, 27 years later. It is the longest continuously running methane digester in the country. So we've been capturing a renewable energy from our cow's manure for 27 years. And that's how we've heated our house and our hot water. But on the other end of that digester, so once the manure passed its way through the digester, we harvested that energy. We're then left with the stuff that comes out the other side. And so we wanted to think a little more creatively, a little bit outside the box for how do we manage this resource so that it's not just a cost, but it's actually a value. And my mom also, on our farm, we have, in addition to the dairy farm, we have a farm market and garden center. So we were well acquainted with the supplies and materials that garden centers and farm markets were using. And she would transplant her vegetables out into the field each spring in peat pots. But then the next spring, when we would till up the soil, those peat pots that were supposed to break down were still in the soil. And when you look at the fibers that make up that pot, it didn't seem like it was so different from what we were getting outside of our digester. So that began literally 6 to 8 years of trial and error. It was just experimenting with how to be able to hold manure fibers together that would then be able to serve the purpose as a planting pot. And finally, in 2006, we went to market for the very first time. And my first job out of college was loading up the family minivan and driving around to local garden centers and presenting to them a pot made out of poop. And as you can imagine, it got a wide range of responses.
Yeah, hopefully some excitement, but yeah, I'm sure that can turn some heads and raise some eyebrows.
It seemed, I think initially a lot more people were inclined to think that it was like a gimmick, right? Like, I don't know if you've seen at like a hardware store where they have the chapstick that is branded as chicken shit. And so there's like obviously some like appeal to that. There's some comedy to that, but we were trying to be taken seriously. Like, no, this is really a pot made out of manure that's meant to be able to grow better and to be a more eco-friendly alternative to the other biodegradables that are on the market. So it took time. We did not knock it out of the park our first year, but here we are 18 years later, and we're still making pots, and we're still, filling orders and meeting the demand for a better biodegradable planting pot.
Amazing. I'm glad that you stuck through and made that. It's the cellular sawdust, and a great great way to make what sounds like a very functional product. And as well, just making use of resources that you have on hand that are going to be excessive otherwise. The mission behind CowPots focuses on sustainability and waste management. How does the product align with your family's goals for environmental stewardship?
The development of CowPots was born out of our farm and family's need and desire to be meeting our own environmental goals. So most dairy farms have a contract with the USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service that is called your CNMP, your Comprehensive Nutrient Management Plan. So we have a binding agreement and contract that articulates just how much nutrient, which is a gentle word for manure, is going to be applied to our fields based on what crops we're growing and how much nutrient uptake those crops have. And so we realized that in addition to our finite land base and there being multiple rivers that pass through our farm, how do we do a better job of managing this resource? It's got great fertility. But if you have it in excess, fertility and nutrient can become a pollutant, right? So how do we export this so that it is bringing those nutrients and delivering them to places where they can still benefit the soil, because we're at our capacity. We don't need more than what we have. So this concept of exporting manure, exporting those nutrients, was based on our farm family's need to meet the goals and demands of our own cropland and to ensure that we're maintaining clean waterways and we're staying compliant with what we are telling the USDA we're going to do with our nutrients and our cropland. So this is based on soil health, water health, and also, to be a sustainable business, it's not just about the environment, it's also about the economics of it. If we can make the manure serve and be an economic driver for our farm, not just a cost, but a means to bring additional income onto the farm, that's exceptional. That's a big deal. So we've proven that with this process and this technology that we can get those nutrients off the farm and we can actually make money doing it.
Yeah, that's again a cellular sawdust and a great economic and ecological benefit. Do the nutrients in the manure, do they maintain as they transition into the pot form, and then as they're put into other gardens and farms, do they still transfer nutrients as well?
So the nutrient goes with the mass. About 15% of manure is solid, is fiber form. The other 85% is liquid. So that 85% is what is stored on our farm in lagoons and tanks to be able to apply to our land at advantageous times. But the 15% of the manure that's made up in fibers and solids, that carries with it nutrient. So we still have a lot of nutrient that we're dealing with on our farm, but if you hold an individual cow pot, you're holding something that's like an ounce. It's a very small volume. So, but the NPK is actually 100. So the nitrogen that's in that pot is not going to be sufficient to feed your plant for its life. But the value of that nitrogen is that when you put that pot in the ground, and our advice to every gardener and grower, don't disrupt the roots. Don't tear, crush, remove that pot at transplant. You put the whole thing in the ground, the roots are going to grow through that pot. And the reason that a cow pot breaks down faster than any of the other biodegradable pots is because of that nitrogen. So other biodegradables made from a variety of different fiber sources are inert. There's no nutrient. But with that nitrogen in the cow manure, that is a catalyst for composting, and it also ends up being very attractive to the microorganisms and critters that are in your soil. They actually are driven to that plant site because they're attracted to that manure.
You see, I've got this my list of questions that I pull from just to cover our bases. So The mission behind CowPots focuses on sustainability and waste management. That was one I just asked you. So moving into some successes and challenges, CowPots has been on the market for 18 years, which is a significant achievement. What are you most proud of in terms of CowPots' growth and impact on the environment?
I'm delighted by the fact that our customer base is a huge mix. We have customers that are schools that are using CowPots in their growing programs, whether it's plant sales and fundraisers or community gardens or school gardens. We have customers that are master gardeners that are doing, local events. We have customers that are selling the retail packs in their hardware store or garden center. And we have customers that are doing production ag, that are growing thousands of pumpkins or whatever the variety is, and they're bringing it out to the field for cultivation, as well as customers that are selling live plants growing in CowPots, whether it's 100 plants or 10,000 plants. I think the fact that we've developed a product that has met the needs of such a wide range of growers, gardeners, plant enthusiasts, that's really exciting. And the fact that we get to continue to tell the story of how dairy farming is actually a part of the climate solution, which I think is counter to what so many people have heard and understand. I think animal agriculture, unfortunately, gets a lot of heat for heating up the environment, when in fact, just on our little farm in the northwest corner of Connecticut, we're demonstrating that in addition to making a sustainable food source, which is really high in protein, and it's local 365 days a year, there's no seasonality to the product that our cows are providing us. That milk is coming off the farm every single day, including Christmas. But in addition to that, they're providing us an energy source, fertilizer to grow our crops, and a viable alternative to plastic pots. So, I mean, and that's coming from just one little farm in the northwest corner of Connecticut. So, if we think more creatively about how cows can be part of our climate solution, I think that our farm and CowPots is a beautiful demonstration of that. And so I'm so excited every day to be able to showcase that.
I appreciate getting to hear instances that, yeah, a lot of times narratives around animal agriculture especially are painting a negative picture of all of the methane gas, which I love to hear too, that y'all are able to capture that and turn that into a fuel source. And yeah, just the general narrative and practices that y'all are able to put in place to create solutions. That's wonderful to hear. Something you mentioned earlier on your intake was that the demand for CowPots has outpaced production capacity. What challenges have you faced in scaling, and how are you approaching the need to expand?
So yeah, there's quite a bit of seasonality to the product because we're offering gardeners and growers a planting pot. So the need and demand for that kind of product is very seasonal. There have been opportunities historically where we had large orders and we demonstrated our capacity by running around the clock. We were actually running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to meet the demand. We don't doubt that in the future, one of the ways to expand and grow is to support another dairy farm in a geographically strategic location to help manage their manure resource. So it's I don't know if it's a year out or 3 years out, but I definitely think that we can take this intellectual property and license the technology to allow another farm in Washington or Idaho or Texas to be able to make pots. And the reality is we've been talking about pots, but actually just this summer we began prototyping packaging materials. And we actually were just recognized a couple weeks ago at the World Dairy Summit for our innovation in packaging, because we're basically presenting to the packaging industry a truly renewable and recycled alternative to fiberboard packaging. And instead of it being made from pulp from trees, having it made from cow manure fibers. So we can expand beyond horticulture. with this process and this technology. And I think that would give another manufacturer a lot more leeway, right? So they could be building product to meet a wide variety of needs. The current prototypes we've developed are for holding wine bottles for when you're shipping like a subscription wine order all over the country. So, but there is, at this point in time, we have signed an agreement with a company in Australia that's interested in licensing the technology because they can't legally import cowpots into Oceania because of it being an animal byproduct. And so there's an opportunity to support this collective of dairy farmers in Australia that have built a community methane digester and are looking for ways to add value to that waste stream, that byproduct that comes out of the digester. So I think going ahead, we're going to keep growing and building the market, and it might be, extending beyond horticulture. It might be entering into other industries and reaching a point where it is justified to invite other farms to be able to capture the value of this technology.
Yeah, I love that. I love to hear, the expansion in the different industries. Y'all probably have your grasp on it. My idea brain starts turning on about thinking if building materials is a possible area for cow manure to products to be able to work into. That's exciting. Check too. So you mentioned the seasonal demand. So with the biodegradable pots, can be that seasonal demand swing. How do you manage production and inventory to meet the varying demand cycles throughout the year?
So we've got quite a bit of history under our belt for what those sales have been. And so we build based on, the lived experience, and we have a warehouse on site so we can build enough inventory to have in stock for the year ahead. One of our number one goals is to be a reliable supplier. So if a customer has the opportunity to meet a growth in the market and they need double or triple what they ordered the year before, we have positioned ourselves to meet that need as best as possible. But we also have this unique opportunity with having a diversified farm operation where, in addition to the dairy farm and the cowpots, we have that farm market and garden center. And so the seasonality of our production can kind of match the seasonality of the farm market and garden center's need for labor. So we can do some labor sharing between the two businesses. And I think, there's so many ways that diversification is essential and critical to the wellness of a business. And having experienced a global pandemic and 3 different operations, we all felt that in a very uniquely different way. But it showcased why having different income streams and different products that are being exported from our farm business is so important, because we had to rely on, the other arms of our operation to keep things going. So we managed through that seasonality by being able to kind of rest and rely on the other businesses that are here. The cows are providing the raw material every day, but we manage through that by having adequate storage to hold on to that material when we don't need it for production.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad y'all were able to make it through any kinds of those, but especially COVID and shipping and all the different challenges that came along with supply chains. And so I'm glad y'all had the diversity to be able to maneuver and position yourselves. Saw too, so CowPots has received positive attention, including a feature on dirty jobs. How has this type of visibility influenced public perception and market reach for CowPots?
In 2006, when we submitted this is before everyone had an iPhone in their hand, right? So the video that we submitted with our application to Dirty Jobs was so, it was rough. It was a rough video, but it was just weird enough, I guess. Because nobody else is doing what we're doing. And so the producers were eager to put us on the show. And so it was October of 2006 that we hosted Mike Rowe and his production team. And all it cost us was our time. So it was hosting that film team for the day. And since then, so it aired January 2007. Since then, it has played in 126 countries. And to this day, every time there is a rerun, I see the activity on my website. I see the visits on my site just jump because of that show. So it is paying dividends. We continue to benefit from having hosted Mike Rowe all those years ago. It's been 18 years, but he was an incredible resource and it's an asset for us. And, after the show, he invited my dad to be on Larry King Live with him. And he invited my dad to be on a panel at an event in DC with him. So the concept for what we're doing really resonated with him. He saw, a dairy farm making lemonade out of lemons, taking something that they had in abundance that would otherwise be a waste product and making it have value. So there's been other opportunities with being on RFD TV and Martha Stewart and the Today Show, but nothing has carried the weight like the Dirty Jobs episode, because people watch that with their families, and it was something that really, people were taken by, because it is such a cool idea. And so to be able to see the back end of it, to see the way that we gather the material and make our pots, that was, I think, really important for people to buy into what we do.
Well, I love that. I love to hear too, especially the positive impact that's continued on since then. Looking forward as CowPot scales, are there specific partnerships or resources that would help you expand production and reach new markets?
So there's, I think, a lot more opportunity and potential to collaborate and partner with growers that are selling live plants, because I know there are so many more people that go and buy their broccoli plants, tomato plants, pea plants, rather than trying to do the seed starting themselves. So a lot of times our product is available at garden centers as a seed starting supply, but I hope to continue to grow and build on the relationships we have with growers that are going to market and entering garden centers with live plants growing in a cow pot. Obviously, the big box stores are on our radar. We've had a few there is a few growers that do supply big box stores with plants growing in cow pots regionally, and I would love to see that expand. The amount of plastic that comes out of the green industry, and for your listeners, I put that in air quotes because it's really disturbing that there's 500 million tons of plastic disposed of every single year from the horticultural industry. And there is a way to do better, and our product is just one of the ways to do better, but it really does require that gardeners, growers, customers start demanding better. If you just keep on going and buying the plants growing in plastic, they're going to keep on being offered to you in plastic. So you need to start expecting more and demanding more for sustainable products when it comes to the things that you're growing.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I'm so excited to have individuals and companies like yourself representing these different options, helping educate, make people aware about what choices they can be. I used to have a shirt, I still have it, it's just worn down. I vote every day, and I imagine that to mean choosing what we're supporting, voting with our dollars, voting with the products that we choose to purchase, consume, and what we support. In that way, so glad that you're out there providing another option and helping to promote that. It's a measurable tons of plastic waste that don't need to be. We're able to create new alternatives. So I'm glad you're out there doing that. And one final question I have, I'm kind of in this, still looking forward. What excites you most about the future of sustainable agriculture and CowPot's role in reducing waste in the farming industry?
I'm excited about the fact that it is going to have to become the standard. And the fact that there's enthusiasm around it. So, it's hard for farms to be compelled to do things strictly based on government regulation. For many farms, a lot of the reasons for why we do things is based on there's regulations that dictate that that's how we have to do it. But I do genuinely believe that there's a lot of new ideas that are guiding us towards, doing things that are right, not just because it's an environmental choice, but also there's an economic benefit to it as well. And at the end of the day, I mean, there needs to be an economic driver to a lot of these sustainability initiatives, because if you are going to if you're going to lose money doing it, you're not going to be in business for very long. So the fact that there's an opportunity to grow and expand the offerings to whoever the end user is, whoever your customer is, and they are buying into the mission of your organization, they're compelled by the impact that you're making, and to be able to have that kind of transparency, I mean, to be able to communicate directly with our customers through social and online, that's, a resource that wasn't available all that long ago. And so to really make sure that the people that are committed to supporting brands like mine can stay very, connected to what I'm doing just by following me online. Like that's, I think, a really cool resource and tool. And there's so much that's good. I mean, I think the rate of change is continuing to increase. So just on this call, I see that we have an AI note taker. I mean, a year ago, that wasn't even a thing. So I think also the role that AI is going to have in sustainability and the future is huge, and we don't even understand it yet. So I'm not sure that I've directly answered the question, but I think I know that we have a product that meets a real need. I mean, this is a tangible product that is converting and transforming a byproduct that is otherwise potentially a waste product and converting it into an alternative to non-renewable products, right? I think it just takes time and energy to continue to grow that market and get people to buy into the fact that like this has to be the future. Like we can't keep relying on what's most convenient and what's cheapest.
Yeah. And I think you did a wonderful job just speaking about what's exciting you about the industry technology advancements, like what's coming down the pipeline. And if there is anything, do you think, did I miss anything that CowPots would benefit from being highlighted about, or just anything else you think beneficial to share for listeners before the end of our conversation?
So are you like, what are some of the other companies or products that you've featured on the podcast?
Yeah, excited. We'll be rolling out episodes, be going live next week or two. But we've had companies who are filtering out phosphorus from water and using it as a agricultural nutrient. So taking it out of wastewater, but no, that's a company, Hydrophos. There's a company, as the fellow I spoke with the other day, Floating Islands International, who they do wetland restoration. Or by implementing wetlands, they're taking methane out of water and sludge that are in their branding company. There's smart wall companies who are creating modular walls to go inside of they're restoring commercial real estate and creating affordable living. Also, these smart walls are growing microgreens and other food locally here, treating water, so recycling water and reusing materials locally. So quite a wide span of different kinds of companies and projects. There's more too, but those are just some of the ones recently, and kind of overlapping to a little bit of some of these recycling and using local products and materials.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I guess I would just say that there's so much potential with the things that we just associate as being waste and garbage, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that just assume that manure is waste. And in fact, I think this is just the tip of the iceberg, what we're doing with our technology and our process. And I am excited as more and more people choose to engage with us, because we can also do custom production. So we've gotten inquiries about making biodegradable urns and coffins and bait cups and golf tees, skeets for target practice. I mean, so there's so much more room to basically spread our manure, right? I mean, there's so many more places and products and concepts to be able to apply this process using our unique fiber and getting it out into the world. And so I hope at minimum for your listeners, this just kind of opens another door for thinking about unique and creative ways to dealing with a problem.
Well, the pun is fully intended. That's some good shit. Awesome. Well, thank you, Amanda, for sharing your insights. Excited to see how CowPots continues to innovate and support sustainable agriculture, and for you, yeah, just being on the episode today.
I'm so delighted. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.